Hi, and welcome to another episode of Awakened Dreaming. My name is Jess,
I'm Utah Jazz.
and we're up to episode number 4 of Awakened Dreaming. And the title for this episode, Yuta, is
Em- Choosing empathy. I almost fucked that up. Choosing empathy is the name.
so today we're going to be speaking about all things about empaths and also how we actually choose it, how it affects our lives, and a whole bunch of other fun, different things, which I'm excited to get into for you guys. Um, I know that this is a topic that's really big out there in the spiritual community, and there's a lot of different things that have been said about empaths. But obviously, for those of you, if someone's sent you this episode, or if you're seeing this and you don't know what empath is, here's just, I guess, a little quick explanation, just to break it down for you guys on how it actually the basic foundations of what being an empath actually is. So, in the spiritual context, being an empath is the ability to feel energies, emotions of not only yourself, but those around you. And it can be something that you feel quite strongly, it can be something that pops in and out. It's kind of like the easiest way, the way that I explain it to people is if you've ever had that feeling of you walk into a room and you didn't know what was going on in the room, but you had that feeling like, hang on a second, everyone was having a fight, but everything seems calm. Like in the sense that no one's arguing, like they're just kind of talking quietly amongst each other, but you feel that tension in the air. That is part of being what an empath is picking up that necessarily underlining energy that isn't necessarily in the surface, or you can't read from body cues or any other types of bits of information that you can see. It's that hidden little gems that we do occasionally pick up on as humans, or for some, all the time, right?
Yep. Basically, the sixth sense, or sixth and seventh, and whatever the numbers you want to apply to it.
I mean, apply as many numbers as you like to it, right?
Mm.
Be and I don't know about you, the listener, or even like Yuda, but for me, um, being an empath is something that I identify with, and something that I've sort of grown over time with. And there has been a number of stages in my journey. So the first stage would probably be unconscious empath. And by unconscious, what I mean by that is not knowing that I was an empath, just feeling things, experiencing things, and moving through it without the awareness of how to deal with it. And I feel like, you know, every one of us have been through that period where you didn't necessarily understand that you were super sensitive, or that you were feeling other people's emotions, and you put it on yourself and you took ownership for those emotions. And from there, you then kind of have this awakening of, hang on a second, I know what being an empath is. It's feeling other people's emotions, and feeling the energies in the room, and feeling, sometimes even things that are going on over the other side of the planet that have nothing to do with you personally, but you're feeling the emotions that are going on with that collectively on the planet. Um and when we go through this awakening, it's quite frequent, and there is a lot of information out there. And I'm going to hit you guys with like a bit of a bombshell very early on. Um, when we have that, and this is something that I experienced, quite often the information we read is that being an empath is a bit of a curse. That it's you have no control over it, that you're the victim to it, you can't control your energy, you're a victim to the energy that is around you,
Hmm.
right? And before I actually like awoke to what empath is, so I was still an empath, but I hadn't awoken to the term empath. I was none of these things. I mean, sure, occasionally I had times where I felt overwhelmed or, overwhelmed by energy that wasn't mine. But when I went and I awakened to the term empath, I started to take on all this teaching of the easiest way that I can explain it is the victimhood that is so frequently portrayed within empaths within the spiritual community. And that's just not true. And I went through a phase where I actually started to experience real negative side effects of being an empath, where I would walk into a room and feel so overwhelmed and so shut down that I wanted to leave, and I didn't feel like I could process any of my emotions. I felt like I couldn't understand myself. I felt like I was feeling everyone else.
Relatable.
And it got to the point like this. And some people will have possibly experienced this. And if you have, like, let us know. Send us a message, on Instagram, or if you're on Twitch or YouTube, send us a message, like, with your story of being an empath. Because what sometimes I used to do is I literally used to pick up like thoughts, and I'd like someone would there'd be like "What do you believe?" type thing, and I'd be like, "Oh, what do you want from life?" Let's say. And if there was a group of, let's say, 10 people, I would think of the thing that the next person said.
Mhm.
And I'd be like, "Damn it, I did that. I did it again." That was their thing.
Mhm.
I just picked it up in the airways. And I'd go through and I'd have to like it became this long drawn out process of like, is it really mine or is it theirs?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or is it mine and theirs, right? Um, and I went through that process for a period of time, and it wasn't until I actually like, it kept getting worse and worse, this feeling victimized. I actually started to occasionally get physically sick in some situations and places, and it wasn't until I started to realize, "Hang on a second, when I look at my life, I had been experiencing some of these things from a very early age. Why was it that when I was very young, I didn't experience the negative side effects of being an empath? What changed
Mm.
from me not knowing to me knowing?" And the only thing that I could figure out was that I had accepted the label that comes with being an empath within the spiritual community, which is you are the victim to everyone else's emotions, energies, and situations. You have no control over it. And that's just not true. And I'm we're going to get into this. Um but I guess I just wanted to just quickly ask you to, have you experienced something like this arc of learning to deal with other people's emotions and learning about empaths and all this type of stuff?
Well, it's kind of funny to me that you're asking this because in my opinion, like you've seen me literally have like that internal turn and switch where I kind of stopped doing that this year back in the summertime. I mean, it was still a like process because even if you like decide to do that and you know that's true, you still have done it for all of your life and then like switching that out or leaving that it takes time. It also
Yep.
takes a lot of, I think, like accountability and like responsibility from the person's side because it's one thing of it is I don't know if it's for everyone, but it's not an easy case of like you just stop doing that. It's the same as telling to like a anxious or depressed person like stop being freaking sad, like cheer up.
Yeah.
um and it's something that like isn't easy to talk about, but I feel every empath needs to talk about it because I didn't really notice that I connected to other empaths on their journey, and we've like really dived into it. And I was like more on the teaching side rather than just the learning side. With my personal experience, yeah, I instantly knew that I was way more sensitive than other people. I knew that whenever like I'm helping or listening to other people or what have you, I literally feel what they feel. I've known that since I was a little kid because I could feel the point that I would be holding, like I'd be coming in a state that would be very like a very happy kid, full of love and sunshine and everything. And then I sit down with this person, I literally feel what they're feeling on a physical, emotional level, on an actual like mental emotional level, because those two things are different. And I would be like going through their issues with them, actually knowing that hey, I'm walking through whatever they're experiencing. um that was my first like knowledge of that. And instantly at the same time I got like the point of I am way too sensitive. This is hard. I don't want this. Can we turn it off? Where's the off button? Is this a choice?
Mhm.
Does everyone have this? Like I was a kid that was always questioning it because I've noticed that there's a difference. Like I saw other kids don't have it. I saw I have it. I saw others have the potential of that becoming a thing. And I also saw that it's very normal and common and usual for absolutely everyone to feel overwhelmed by it, especially when you're a kid starting out with like a really high level of empathy, because that doesn't stop. You continuously learn with it each and every year. And I think basically as soon as you become aware of that, you become aware and like internalize the point that hey, the world's very crude and rough at this point. It doesn't, like accept a lot of sensitivity or truth on emotions, and being vulnerable and connecting with that, and even just like opening up on the point of how much you can connect with a person or how much you can feel from other people or around, or how
Mhm.
difficult it is for other people, with this, let's say, extra sense or sensitivity. And I've always like had this parallel of where I'm writing the point of like I'm very proud of myself for having an increased sensitivity, because I also don't just have it, I choose it. Because I could choose to turn it off. I found that out, but my life just flatlines after that. Completely flatlines. I don't I can't be myself. I can't be in the world even then. Um and honestly, with that pride, the parallel was the victimhood mentality of like I have to hold I have to hold this like line. I have to
Mhm.
basically always like keep myself out of other people's either lives or just like connecting on that front or sharing my emotions and etc., because I have the responsibility or accountability of being sensitive and having to like process that and keep that under wraps, basically, not necessarily hiding it, because I can't hide that. Everyone that knows me instantly is like, you're interesting because of that. What the fuck? Like, it is interesting to be around you because you can instantly feel like that sensitivity and everything else. But um I would never really let myself connect to anyone around it, even if it's an empath. And I would always have to have that point of like I am carrying this like burden, so I can kind of help out everyone around myself and kind of do what I came here to do in a better light, because I need this tool. Basically, it wasn't really something that it was like equally as much of a power as much as it was like a curse, I guess, or whatever you could say that. But whenever I would speak to
Mhm.
other people, I would be driving them out of that belief or whatever. Like I'm like, if I'm gonna carry this around and I don't know when I'm gonna get rid of this belief that it is difficult, because I know and I can see that it's a blessing, I am still going to give this awareness to other people that this is, although definitely difficult, because everyone would be crying to me on how much it'd be hard for them. I am still going to help them shift and remind them of the point that this isn't as bad and you can use it to your advantage. You can grow yourself this way. And the point of you stepping into it as a gift and ability and a power will actually hold such results to yourself, where you feel more connected with yourself. You're going to know yourself way more and better. And besides that, you're going to actually find your place in the world as well as connect with that. That is absolutely integral currently with just in general people maybe responding in a negative light. It's more of the case of other people are just really triggered or can't handle the point of like an increased sensitivity just because you were around. Maybe someone might even be envying you on that because that sensitivity instantly opens you up to so many more great emotions as well, and a deeper sense of love, community, and
Mm,
other things. Like the blessings with it, or countless, abound. And it's just, yeah, it's not really that easy to instantly like lay out and etc. because most people with all of this go through a huge journey in their lives. Like I would assume some really sensitive kids that are like born now or in the past like 10 years, they're gonna have to work through it and get through it like all of their lives. And it's gonna be a thing that it's not necessarily like a condition. For example, let's say there's like mental conditions where you know that the person's more sensitive to this, that, or the other, or whatever. There's no pills to help this. There's definitely managing systems and etc. But we don't talk about the point that, let's say, empaths and really sensitive people need to learn how to use the whole point of being sensitive and it being unseen, something that you definitely can't describe from brain to brain or neurochemistry to neurochemistry or this, that, to it. Like, there's no template.
mm.
It's just a case of like people kinda are there with this thing, which is even harder to explain because it has like a whole multi-dimensional thing with it and spirituality and it's not a condition. Like it's not a label that you could apply to it. It's a whole completely different thing.
And I mean, you made some really good points there, and I wanna go back, like,
Yeah, you
way
go ahead.
back.
Yeah, because I exploded. You can bring it back now
Ye
as you do. I made it go
I
boom, you
wanna
bring
go
it
back.
back.
I want to bring it back because you made some really good points there, and they're things that, like, for me, I experience, and they're also from people that I like I've talked to about being an empath have actually said, which is that like they feel a victim to the energy, they can't control it, they can't turn it off. I know that I definitely there were times it's like, why the hell can't I turn this off? This is a freaking curse. Like this is not a gift. This is a curse. Like what is this, and why can't I do anything about it? Um, and, which is, when you're in that situation of being, like, in the "I can't turn it off," you feel powerless.
Hmm.
And when you feel powerless, it demotivates you. It puts you into a worse energetical space, because it feels like you cannot do anything to make it better or
Yep.
manage it or control it. And that, I think, is one of the biggest downsides of the way the spiritual community talks about being an empath, because they don't even give you the insight or opportunity to say, hey, like, yeah, there's going to be times that you can't manage this or you can't necessarily control things, but these are the things that you can do for yourself
Hmm.
in order to help you get through those situations, even if it only makes it 5% better.
Yeah. I mean, usually you hear the thing of like, just stop being a victim. This is a
Yeah.
blessing you came down to be like this. Good job.
I mean, I still have days, where I am like, "I'm done today." Shut the doors. I am like,
Hmm.
"It
Yeah.
is not my day to be dealing with stuff." Um, when I speak to being like a victim to being an empath, it's not that I'm not saying that you don't have days where it gets too much, and you wanna shut down. It's more if you're consistently saying that you're a victim, like it's a mindset that gets programmed in with what we get taught around it,
Hmm.
and it's reprogramming that mindset. um for me, when I started to realize, hang on a second, like what's changed, because I never used to be this way in large crowds. I could deal with it, I can manage it. Yeah, sure, there were times that I was sensitive, but I was able to push through and get it done.
Yeah.
And it was like, was I just pushing through, or was I coming from a different space? What was I doing differently? And I actually had to like backtrack, so to speak, through to who I was at an earlier stage when I didn't know empaths, when I didn't have the information, and try and retrace and start to do some of the things that I was doing back then to deprogram myself, because that's pretty much what I was doing, deprogramming myself from I'm a victim to this to I don't even know what empath is,
Mhm.
right? Going back to that state. Um, and through deprogramming, what I started to realize was, hang on a second, like when I used to think about this, I used to think it was like when I was overwhelmed by energy, I used to think it was about me, right? I used to put it on, which is something as well that when we don't know, we put all the stuff on about me, which can be a good thing and a bad thing because obviously sometimes the
Yeah.
emotion is not yours and sometimes it is. Um,
I just want to quickly butt in and say though to any empath listening, how dangerous it is to take on someone else's energy, emotion, or thought as your own, and then obviously, as most of us do, guilt trip or like shame yourself for it. So common.
100%. Um, so, but by actually thinking, hang on a second, I used to make it about me. What I realized is that I used to process the information and I used to figure out sometimes that, hang on a second, this stuff really isn't mine. And I'd push it aside.
Yeah.
And then I'd keep the stuff that was about me. And this is for me, this is what I call a hook, right? It's like the energy is out there, it's swirling around, it comes to you, right? And this is my personal opinion as to, part of what being an empath is. The energy comes for you to actually process it, to push it down either into the earth grids or to push it up. For me, it's heaven to the angels, push it up to heaven or the earth grids or both, right?
Mhm.
Or whatever it is you believe in to process the energy. Process that energy. It's not for me to hold it, it's not for me to store it, it's it's not for me, it's occasionally for me to process the energy so then I can filter that information in and then give it to other people,
Mhm.
like, or for my own, "Okay, this room, there's been, like, an argument in. Okay, cool, so I might wanna, like, tread lightly
Mhm. Yeah.
while I'm here." But it's not for me to hold on to or store,
Yeah. I mean,
and
everyone
and
feels like
that's
it
what
is their responsibility.
100%. And so most of our work as an empath is actually letting it go.
Because other
Just because
people have more
we
also issues on letting it go.
yeah, letting it go, letting it go. And then when it gets hooked, that hook hooks into you, you go, "What's that hook?" And you've got to figure out what the hook is. In order to take the hook out, you are either process that information or you put it into the "I'm gonna process it later" pile,
Mhm.
right? Because we sometimes can't process stuff. Unhook it and keep going about your day.
Yep. Um, what else did
Which
you want to
sounds
say?
really simple.
Yeah, because I just like I have a list over here in my head, like on, hey guys, just a disclaimer, this, that, and the other, because like, like
It
one,
sounds
it sounds
really
easy.
simple.
Yeah, like
Practice.
because the thing that you can hear from like you talking is like one beautiful thing about being an empath is although you like obviously are like a magnet for things and take things in as and even things that don't belong to you or you should give back, which if that's happening just give it back, don't hold on to anything. But
Mhm,
if you can process it, that the blessing there is you suck things in like easier, but you also let go and process and alchemize way easier and quicker and better, hence the point of like processing so much and etc. But an important aspect is like I think a lot of empaths are like this, I have to keep doing this is like you know that curse or whatever, or blessing or responsibility. One thing is you don't have to take everything in, that's not your point. Mostly the most important part on what you are here to process is your own shit, your family karma shit, and your friends' stuff, as well as your countries. I know that's usually left in them, but where you incarnate it matters because that's the energy you're processing. Um, and you don't need to overextend yourself. Like, you don't need to be a drained sponge that is constantly just filling up with water and then getting like completely dried out
Hmm.
by the sunlight. It's about that awareness that you were talking about, and teaching that you gotta like do it as like a breathing natural thing of yours that you already know how to do, and not hate yourself for it.
I mean, these days now for me, and I mean, this has taken a number of years, but there are some days where it's just an unconscious process that I have running. And then if something like an error pops up, it pops up and then I deal with it as an error. Um, and then other days it's more in my face and I'm dealing with it on a very conscious level and I won't lie, it's draining and it takes time. And sometimes I don't, necessarily set myself up right, which is those days that I just can't deal. And whether it be because I'm dealing with personal emotional shit that I need to deal with myself or the energy is too much. What I will also say is energy has for me energy has its own consciousness.
Hmm.
So the energy isn't going to if you say I can't do it, the energy's not going to be like, well, screw you, you know. The energy is going to understand. So the when you start to actually I wouldn't say communicate to the energy, but when you start to actually come into balance within yourself, and this is where in the previous episode we spoke about mindfulness and all those things, that all helps this by the way. Um when you get into that balanced place, you're only going to get as much as you can handle.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to mention, but forgot. You'll only get the amount you can handle. That just doesn't mean you should also push yourself to do everything you can handle.
100%. 100%. There have been times where I've walked into like events and spiritual places and stuff, and the energy has come to me, and I'm like, oh man, like seriously,
Shoot,
I'm on
go
my
away.
day, I'm on my day off. I'm like, and I'm like, okay, like what is the bare minimum that I can do to actually help this. And one of the things that is the quickest and easiest way, and this is something that you can do, is just literally setting the intention that it goes down into the earth grids and up to the angels.
Hmm. Yep,
That simple intention will allow the energy to naturally flow between the two places.
yep. I mean, in general, there's so many things. It there like needs to be a handbook, a manual, a guide. I would just like call it an empath manual or like psychic manual or whatever, because it's really little things, but fuck do they like change absolutely everything. One, meditation before or after bed. Two,
Mhm.
letting go of everything you've sucked up either before or after like you wake up. Just in general, like, using your guides, like asking them to, hey, help me process stuff or whatever. Then also making a decision of like, hey, I'm gonna have a grounding practice every single day for just about 10 minutes and like send everything down into the earth grids or into Gaia. Or, I'm gonna like properly process all of this energy right now while I'm in this waiting room. There's just so many things to do about it. Talking to other people in general, like it's very empaths usually isolate themselves, but you really don't need to. A lot of people are very
Yeah.
open and welcoming to hearing about the point that you're sensitive and what the hell you're experiencing. Most people really appreciate that because there's some type of like what's the word? Like you can, connect with the person on that. Maybe even if you're not really that sensitive. Like, come on.
I will also say as well, if you're connecting it into the earth grids, one thing that you do want to do is when you're doing that, you want to actually add on top of that, um, that it is to be reused and recycled,
Mm,
right? It sounds it sounds like that you're not adding much, but by just going, I'm sending the energy down to Gaia. Gaia's then gonna go, well, what am I gonna do with it?
mhm. Yeah.
Right? Is she gonna store it? If you say I'm sending it down to be reused and recycled, you've put the label on it that, hey, this energy is to be reused and recycled for the greatest and highest good. Perfect. I know what I need to do with it.
Yeah.
And off it goes. Um, not to say that the other ways don't work or anything like that, but just from uh the work that I've kind of done around earth grids and grid work, that small intention makes a huge difference.
Mhm. Keeps the pipes clean.
Yeah, keeps the pipes clean. Makes my job easier if I'm doing any earth grid work.
And everyone else who does Earth grid work, and because like there's also some certain places in the planet where it's kind of like the swirl, like the average pool, like a bit of a collection
Mhm.
point. I think Sedona is one of them, I think. So, if you're like a worker somewhere around there and everyone's fucking sending their shit and not even labeling it, you're like, oh my god, really, guys? Can you look after your trash? There's like, it's 2022. There's different bins to use. But
It's like general waste and
yeah,
recycling. Like,
exactly. It's
I
important,
mean, obviously, even when you are sending energy, they'll filter it through, but they know the intention behind it, and the intention strengthens that
Yeah,
um there. So
indeed.
it's just it's a little thing, um, but it's something that I've added into just, may this energy be recycled and reused for the highest good of all.
Yeah. I also have a question for you.
Go for it.
So obviously we're like talking about the point of whether if you're like a born empath and like your younger years, or when you're a person
Mhm.
that's kind of like sensitive or has those senses and then gets initiated into like higher experience of sensitivity and energy. So what was your experience when you had to go through like a really big leveling up or initiation? Like, what was the experience of everything we spoke about being an empath, the victimhood mentality, and like the pride, or just the point of like there being way more you have to handle and process and experience? And I mean, yeah, you can also get into the point that it probably, as is for everyone, is like, this is insane.
I mean, um, when I was a kid, I didn't really realize I was doing it. It was just kind of like I'd walk into rooms and kind of realize, even if like as a child, I shouldn't have picked this up, but I'd pick up like what the parents were feeling and tailor my reactions to how they were feeling in my relating. Um, that like that's a very simple thing, which I realized later on was obviously mm, those empathic gifts.
Mhm.
Um, but then it kind of also as well got to there are times and there are still times that I do feel this where I feel things that are going on in the planet in an extreme way. Um, one of them would have been in 2020. I was feeling like so much anxiety and panic and fear at particular moments in time when like there was a I think there was an outbreak in India, and all of a sudden I've tuned like without even realizing India's going through a gigantic wave of um the disease.
Can't believe we had to
It
censor that. Continue.
um, I mean, but I didn't know that they were going through that,
Mhm.
and I was feeling so overwhelmed and so much fear, and I kept getting India, 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 and I was like, "Why am I like, what is going on here?" And it wasn't until I started to, like, Google it and research it, I was like, "Oh, hang on a second, India is going through this big first wave." Um, and this is what they're experiencing. Now, I had no one at the time that I knew in India, right? Which is when you put, like, 2 and 2 together, you're like, "How the hell did you
Mhm.
feel into that?" Um, I don't know, but all I did was just I went in and I processed my own emotions around everything that was going on and how it connected into me,
Mhm.
and kinda moved through it that way. It wasn't easy, I'm not gonna lie. Um, some of these because, like, that's not something that's close to me as it's happening. That's something that's sort of secondary outside of me, and I'm experiencing it to some degree without as much control. So
Mhm.
it's more at that point, I've strapped myself into the roller coaster and I'm just trying to navigate my way. Or I've strapped myself into the boat or the car and I'm just trying to navigate my way into calm waters.
Yeah.
Um, and then when you get to calm waters, you're like, oh, thank God, like I've gotten through it. Um, so it's just one of those for me, it's something that it keeps seeming to step up. Um, and when I guess, first started to label myself as an empath, I just assumed that everyone else was the same level as me. I just assumed everyone else had the same level. Um, and it wasn't till I started to go into, I guess, the spiritual community more and that side of things that people started to like I would talk about things and people would look at me weird.
Interesting.
Or they would be like "You're really like, extremely sensitive, like, more than the average person." And these are, like, sensitive people, by the way, talking to me about this. Like, and they're going, like,
Well,
"It's really interesting, like, you're really really sensitive." Um, and it took me a while to realize and then when I started to work on stuff and they started to see that even in some situations where other people would falter, I guess is the easiest word, um, I was able to maintain it, but they would look at me and if they asked me a question around what was going on in the environment, I would tell them exactly what was going on and I would tell them sometimes more detail than they could pick up. And they would go, "But you're okay." Like, you're fine. They're like, "What's the difference?" And the difference is that I was just consistently letting it go.
yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily holding on to it. The other thing is as well, and this is it's it's a weird sub loop that you can get into with being an empath. It's like, um, and we've spoken about this. I have to deal with it, right? I have to deal with this energy. I have to process it. If you have that, you're gonna hold on to it because you feel you need to process it in some way.
Mhm. I'm guilty of that. Don't do that. Bad decision. Bad. Very bad.
And it's like you're processing stuff that isn't necessarily yours, that doesn't need to be processed by you, instead of processing your own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot with the empath journey in general. Uh, besides the point that hey, you're here basically, obviously, to like process all these things and help out, and in general be able to relate with people while they're going through their shit, and being a person that they can be like, oh, I'm not crazy, or I can be understood even on this
Mm.
like very conflicting, confusing stuff. It's also the case of like knowing and exercising discernment on what you do have to pick up and work with, or what you do have to basically kind of do that thing of like take one for the team, and go, work with another person, or like actually be there for them, and their like energy is really chaotic to help them through something. But it's actually like that discernment of when you have to do that and when you don't have to do that is really important, because one of the things is, first, you're not a I'm trying to think of the best analogies, like a working horse or whatever, or like the most like overworked, just whatever animal ever,
Mm.
doing whatever they have to do. It's also a case of like you're working through a bunch of shit yourself. You're gonna have to not do this for everyone, because not everyone deserves it. Like, that's hard to accept because you kind of want to overextend yourself and everything, but no. You're gonna become way more sensitive. You're gonna become, tuned into so many little details that you're gonna have to know how to look after yourself, how to manage yourself, how to discern within yourself on the information you're picking out, and what to even do with that going forward, and when to give up, or when to keep trying on whatever you're trying. Because like one thing that we're like doing is like coming at it from a very logical standpoint, but there's a lot of fucking emotions. There's a lot of emotions with being a sensitive person, and then obviously trying to make it into a thing um, where you're working with it and you're using your blessing rather
Mm.
than victimizing yourself. And yes, it's probably only gonna go on the up, meaning your sensitivity is only gonna become a bigger thing, and there's gonna be way more interesting things to do that with that.
Yeah.
I didn't really have people say anything like that or like relate like that with me. The thing I've had, which made my journey really difficult, is I could see from people's eyes that they were kind of baffled or like completely confused on how I'm listening to them and how I'm connecting all of the things they didn't know were happening within themselves or around them or whatever. But I wouldn't ever have that mentioned, never. So with my experience, what understanding I had of myself being an empath is, I am a very sensitive person that has emotions instead of this size, huge. One, and two, they're a lot more described when I'm like with other people. That's all I
Mm.
knew. Everything else wasn't referenced, wasn't mentioned, and etc. And most of the time, when I actually would bring up a thing that I'm picking up on something, or I would be like talking to a person that needed to come to terms with an emotion they had, or the point that I'm leading them onto a path within themselves where they realize something very deep, um, I usually would be called not crazy per se. I've had a few times where I've actually literally got called like, you're insane. That's not it. You have it wrong. You're just imagining things. You're dreaming. Um, I would also just literally have people be like, you're literally overthinking it, and I think you are using your brains and talents to waste. I've had that quite often, more so than not, and that's the thing that really made me doubt everything, because like I was like, the brain is an interesting thing. If you have empathy, in theory you could pick up on a bunch of other shit. I wonder, could like, and this is me when I'm like processing all of this, could you in theory pick up on people's thoughts? Could you have a telepathic conversation? Can you manipulate emotions? Can you take emotions on and literally delete them from other people's like experience? Can you delete thoughts? Like, I always had these thoughts, but I literally couldn't ever properly realize any of it. So, but that experience, I know is like common for empaths, one, in like certain places that are less spiritual or don't like talking about emotional things and are superficial.
Mm.
But that doesn't change the point that the person that has that experience is still going to go through their experience of, having that all open up. And I think a really important thing is like, don't get discouraged if you are a person that's way more sensitive, because that is definitely more of a blessing that you're going to realize and kind of click into rather than not. Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting how it's like a big thing nowadays, but we're probably gonna still have to get over the point of like you're crazy, you're just a bit sensitive, this, that, and the other for a long time, and empaths aren't even gonna talk to each other just yet that openly, although definitely everyone wants
Mhm.
to, you know.
What I will also say is, for those on the other side that are trying to actually build their empathic talents, their abilities, and they don't feel like they have that much, it's the same like way to manage your empathic abilities as it is to build your empathic abilities. There isn't like a, okay, so you've got it, so this is what you do, and okay, so you haven't got it, so this is what you do. And the reason is because in reality, everyone has even like the tiniest grain of sand of empathic abilities. We've all had at least one experience where we've felt that energy of someone, like something different in the room. We've all had that. There's not a single person in humanity, apart from maybe like obviously a small baby infant, but even then they may have experienced it with, they just can't speak to it, that they're able to feel these things.
Yep.
um it's just part of our ingrained nature, and it's nurturing those abilities to balance out and help you, rather than being something that it feels like you have to deal with and it being a curse, because um that is draining, that is something that you don't want. I know that when I had that, I just wanted it to be taken away, and there was a point where, uh, where my guide team actually, just to kinda teach me a lesson, went, "Okay, great, she's asked enough times to for this to be taken away from her."
Oy.
And they did, they took it away, and I felt completely disconnected. I felt, completely lost, and I couldn't interpret the world. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't want to. The other thing, and this is actually a huge key point. I didn't want to connect into anyone or anything in the world.
Mm, that's a lot of disconnection.
And the reason being is that one of the greatest gifts of being an empath is your ability to connect.
Yep. Ain't that the God-given truth?
Your ability to, and this is your ability to connect with yourself, right? One of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself as an empath is to connect with yourself, because if you understand yourself, you're going to be able to better understand if it's you or someone else.
Yeah, I mean,
If it's you or a situation, you or an energy. Because if you know yourself, you know where you sit. So you're then able to go, okay, well, this is what I know, and this is the unknown.
well, besides that, a huge important part on like what you just said is, and everything you say just reminds me of whatever I wanted to say previously, but it's like you as an empath, that is like a way bigger, huge thing of like of your identity, of your core essence at a soul level, in terms of like who you are as a being,
Mm.
and you can't take that off. You can, I mean, like literally, it just got told by Jessica that you can do that. I mean, I tried turning it off. I'll share the story of what happened to me when I turned it off because it was fucking horrible. I don't suggest this to anyone. If you want it, and I have not heard a good story of people turning it off. I've only heard shitty and really fucking bad. So I wouldn't suggest turning it off because you're gonna be
I mean,
really sad or
I
disconnected.
will say that I spent years and years and years, and they were just like, "You know what? We're sick of her saying this and sick of her complaining. Let's just give her what she wants." They also then had to help pull me out as well, like, so it was, you know,
Well,
they
there we
had to
go.
do some more work. But, I mean, I then did the rest of the work to help my way out as well, so it wasn't like it was a lesson for me
You
in
had
a
to,
in a
yeah,
lot of
exactly.
ways.
You had to learn.
Yeah, I had to learn.
You wanted the thing. You said this is my right. I want this thing. I get it right now or I'm gonna yell at you continuously and they're like, "Okay, fine." And then you were like, "Oh shit, I asked for this. I should do something about this. This is not what I asked for." I mean, it is, but it just didn't result in the way I wanted it. Can we like get a refund? No, there's no refunds, but
And I will say I don't think everyone, necessarily gets the opportunity to do that. I think part of the reason that I was able to experience that was so then I could literally today, like, speak to it. And say, "This is what it's like," but also then understand and interpret what it actually is, because without that experience, I wouldn't like, I
hmm
might have known that connection was a big part of it, but I wouldn't have known that it's such a core essence and such a gift that is there, and it's the thing that connects us not only to everything around us, but also anything above us and higher than us, and as spiritual people, we always want to connect with our guides and our team and all these things.
hmm
It's like we want to go up, but at the moment we're down here on Earth, and the mission is to connect with things down here on Earth.
I just gotta say, I feel a huge deja vu feeling. I don't know if I've told you this or not, but this is like where you're calling me out, and I dreamt about it like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So thank you very much for that. It's very nice.
And I mean, this comes down to a story that a spiritual teacher of mine, Mary and Jay from One Love Humanity, um, they told me. I'll say it's a story, for the sake of it. They told me the story. When I heard this story, it made total sense to me. I was like, I feel like I've heard this, and this explains a lot of things for me. Which was Earth obviously is going through a really hard time. We're shifting a lot of energies, depending on how you view it. You could say we're going to 3D to 5D, or we're changing the energy cycle. There's a lot of stuff going on the planet, and we're getting rid of a lot of the old stuff and stepping into a lot of new stuff because we're going through from the age of Piscean to Aquarius, right?
Mm.
Uh, and for anyone that doesn't know the difference between Pisces and Aquarius age. Just simply put, um, Piscean was all about sacrifice, self-sacrifice. It was all about serving others before you serve yourself.
Also
The
hidden,
Aquarian age also hidden. The Aquarian age is all about community. It's all about like connection. It's all about humanity.
and also raising things to be blown up from the unknown.
Yeah,
Whatever's under the
love.
rug,
You
get
know,
yeah.
yeah. Also, emotions being expressed freely, all those types of things. So you could even see, like, just in those two, you know, times, that's two very different worlds.
Also Aquarian age, power of the individual within the community.
Yeah, but it's within the community. Without the community, there is no power for
Yeah.
that individual. So the key important thing is that it's connection with the community.
hmm
Um, Hugely important. And this goes on for a number, like, it's a really long time that we're in the Aquarian age. Um, and with this shift, there needed to be a shift energetically on the planet. So, a memo was put out to the universe, to, wherever heaven, other planets, whatever you want to call it, they were put out, asking for people, asking for souls, because we're all souls, eh, to actually come down to planet Earth and to actually help this planet at this particular time. And you could choose to come, and by choosing to come, you were going to have an experience on a soul level that not every soul necessarily gets to experience. So you either chose to came to this planet or you didn't. Now, obviously, for most of the people that are listening to this podcast, that are spiritual,
Mhm.
you chose to come to the planet.
Mhm. Yay.
N- Now, if you're wondering, am I really one of those people? I just want you just to ask yourself a few questions and just say yes or no. Do you feel that the world is the way it should be, or should it be a bit different and a better place? Yes or no? Do you feel that we should treat animals and plants and these things better? Do you feel that something's not right and this isn't the way the world's meant to be, and you don't understand why it's not the way you think it is, and you think the world should be, completely different, but it's not this way? Um, do you feel that you're here to make a difference, make a change, add something to the world?
Also, I want to add, because this is really important, if you also feel like there is an insatiable thirst and desire to make something different, like to do something about it, that you won't stop at least adding a little bit, and that's even if you're miserable as fuck, that's also a clear sign. Having like disagreements about being that caring with other people is also a sign.
Now, if you said that yes, you wanted to change the planet, yes, you wanted to do something about it, yes, you build, the animals, the plants, yes, the world isn't the way you thought it was going to be, or like you feel that way, like why is it the way that it is type thing, there is a good chance that you are one of those people that got that memo and you came down to planet Earth.
Congratulations, good job. We're proud.
And there are many people, like I've met many people that, when they've heard this story have gone, "Yep, I got the memo. I feel it. Like it's this makes so much sense to me." And one of the things I want to say is that if you're one of those people, you don't need to become Oprah, right? In order to make the changes on the planet. Your change can be something as simple as raising a child slightly different to break a cycle within a generational family.
Yep, that's basically it. Or like your thing could be just literally moving house.
Mhm. Your It could be something as simple as you volunteer and you plant trees on weekends. Like, there are so many little things that add up to big things, and this is really, I guess we spoke about this, in the last episode with how, a butterfly flaps its wings and it goes around the world. Uh, that is 100% true, and particularly in this day and age with everything that is going on the planet at the moment, it's those
Hmm.
little tiny things that are going to make a huge difference down the line.
Yeah.
So add something, and I really call an action, I guess, for this is do something in order to make a difference today or tomorrow. And I'd love to hear for our listeners, um, let us know what you've done or what you plan to do to actually make that change, to actually make that difference, whether it be something about yourself personally or something externally, with the planet or people around you, that you can do,
Yep.
because everything helps. And you don't necessarily need money, you don't necessarily need that much time, um, at all to make a difference.
It's really funny. I have like this analogy stuck in my head right now, and I've never thought of it. I've never had it. As you were talking, I also looked at the clock at like 1:33:33. So imagine it like, let's say you're like one of the new kids at a university center dorm, whatever. Everyone's there to learn. Everyone's in different places. Some kids are like from wealthy families, others are not from not so wealthy families, and everyone kind of just wants to get along and just have their experience the best they can. Honestly, you're not supposed to become valedictorian. You're not supposed to become someone that's like a huge cheerleader or whatever. If you think about it, the whole like energy of being in such a place depends on the point of every student is doing whatever the fuck they want. Might there be like the artist or whatever, the jock guy, etc. Like you in general, to actually help, only really need to find those little things that primarily bring joy to you, and only then do you realize that they trickle out and ripple out and have some type of effect. Because in
Mm.
all honesty, a let's say a internet night computer geek that doesn't get off their like PC and is constantly like debating over science is already doing that. If they're enjoying themselves, they're just like, sharing the point of that connection over information and wanting to have it like the best you can. You might want to be like, a person that starts their journey out by saying one nice compliment to the cashier register person that you meet every single day. That's like the new change you're gonna do, because hey, you went off that inkling that maybe they're having a shitty day, and that's a pick me up for you and for them. It's little things. Now, for the people that are in a position where they're like, "Hey, what about the bigger things? What about like all the crazy things that empathy might include or not include, and I'm not aware of it, and like just the point of like leveling up and etc." Usually you have a pull for where you have to be or what you have to do, what's your point of joy, where you obviously introduce more point of like sensitivity, or where you exercise the point of who you are and like what you pick up, what your senses are, what your
Mm.
abilities are. And it's literally just any little thing. Piece of writing, you leave at your workplace and someone finds it. Like anything, just try the one little thing you can. Um, and fuck, what was the personal thing I said I was gonna fucking talk about? I forgot. Damn it! There was a personal thing and it was there and then it got out the window and now I'm lost in my brain. Turning it off, right. I don't suggest turning your empathy or sensitivity off. I know that like this whole segment about, taking the first step and doing whatever it is, regardless of what it is, and not guilting and shaming yourself in it is like really daunting and scary. But the alternative, which some
Mm.
people do get to experience because they're usually in a position where they can turn it off or go from this place down to here and come back up and go forward on, they usually get the opportunity of having it turned off. And there's many ways on how you can have that done. It can happen metaphysically to your energy body. It can happen to you and your incarnation on emotional or mental or spiritual or whatever aspect. It can be a 3D thing that happens where it makes you shut
Mm.
down and internalize everything. Point is, if you ever are at a point where you're taking that choice or decision, I can just give you a heads up and tell you it's not cool, because you stop feeling connected to other people. You stop understanding your own emotions and thoughts. Funnily enough, you'd think that it would be easier because you're disconnected from so much noise from the outside world, but empaths, one thing about them is they are growing as they grow with each other. Like, it's really important to see your own reflection as an empath, as you're also seeing other people's emotions and everything. Like that's the way just empaths process. You can't really take away that. If you take that away, you're literally taking half of the person away, or one foot. or one leg or whatever. Like it's not gonna be as cool. Yeah, you can process and function, but you're gonna be really in a tough spot where it's difficult to function, it's difficult to be happy or connect with other people or share or go for the things that you really want to go through towards or to. Life's usually a lot more bleak from every person I've talked to about it, and when I personally did it, I I made it like a whole full decision from multiple avenues and directions. I made it a 3D thing. I stopped talking to everyone in my 3D reality, and I also literally changed location to where it's like, 3,500 kilometers apart from like my usual group of people. I did the whole hermit thing where you try isolating and not talking to people about emotional things or like and keeping everything to like intellectual topics. I literally didn't go outside as much, and I couldn't pick up on other people's thoughts or feelings and emotions. I'd have to ask them all about it. And eventually, what I've noticed is it only got worse. My mental health got really crappy. I couldn't see the magic in the world. Like, I couldn't see anything that was like synchronistic or coincidental, or I didn't believe in it. Anything that was like joyful, I'd start arguing it because that would just instantly start triggering the other side, which is empathy. And it really wasn't worth it. It took for me to get out of that because I didn't get taken out of that. My guides did help me a little bit, but I also am a really stubborn like ass to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna get myself out of here myself. If I put myself here, I'm gonna get myself out. If I need help, I ask you for it. You don't touch me otherwise. I need to fucking learn this because I've wanted this for a really long time. Like I asked for the point of being a zombie, I think, for about a good 9 years, something like that. I was wishing to be a zombie, which is basically a dull person that's just working all the time and isn't really responsive, but it's successful, just gets shit done. Um, it took it took a really difficult personal life hit for me to even like break open to feeling again. I needed a lot of pain and a lot of sadness and anger for me to become empathetic again. I lost again all of my friends. I had to start moving again. I almost lost like people in my immediate family. I lost my school, my workplace. I lost everything in the span of like three months. Oh yeah, right, I also lost my boyfriend at that current point in time. I lost everything at once. At fucking once. And that's what I needed to wake up out of it and get out of it. I had to experience all of that, and it's really weird having to come back out of it because at that current point in time I'm like remembering absolutely everything about how connected the world is, how it functions, why empaths are important, the whole thing of, why every
Mm.
empath comes here, and at the same time I still feel like a human that's really in a bad spot. Um if you get over it, if anyone is in that spot, or this feels relatable, you're probably gonna get out of it. Don't worry about it. And if you are an empath, try finding more joy with what you do and you are, and have that as a blessing that is helping you be the most authentic version of you here. Because as soon as you tune into the authenticity of who you are, your human experience
Mm.
gets better, as well as your spiritual, multidimensional, whichever self experience. Just,
Agree.
yeah.
Um, and I guess I should probably say for me, when I was coming out of it, the thing that kind of helped me on my journey, the first thing that helped was I had connected with someone, and funnily enough, it wasn't someone that was in my like friendship circle at that point in time, but this person came into my life just for that moment in time. I feel literally just to help me start to reconnect with myself by asking questions about myself, um, and asking me stuff about my life, which then started to connect me to me, and then it started to connect me with other things around me because I have to connect with other things around me because 'cause I'm connecting it to me,
Yep.
right? Because that's the way that I processed it. So by connecting that, so just sitting with yourself and just asking or getting someone to ask you questions, about yourself and your past and what you've experienced and what you've been through, um, can actually help you reconnect if you are disconnected. And then from there, I started actually going out and sitting into nature and connecting in with nature and just feeling into that because for me this is just for me, it may not be for you, but for me nature is always um if I'm struggling, it's easier for me to deal with nature than it can be sometimes with people. So
Mm.
it was like z- me easing myself back into the waters slowly.
Mhm.
And so I just go sit like under a tree or on the grass or by the beach, um, and just sit there even for like half an hour, 10 minutes, just connect in, and that then started that process back up. And then I had to deal with like very similar to you. The when I shut down, it's like everything shut down. I
Mm.
then had to deal with the consequences of everything shutting down.
Yeah.
So it's not just, if you choose to shut it down, it's not just like shut down and you can boot it back up in a second. No, it takes time, and in the time that it takes you from shutting it down to booting it back up, you have consequences for your real life actions that you then have to go through and deal and take ownership for.
Yep. Exactly. You made me think of a question though, like obviously seeing that you've experienced empathy and obviously the disconnection from empathy. Would you agree in saying the point that most of the time empaths believe that it's a case of like they can't handle the external? Like usually it's the connection part that they can't handle with like people or places or nature or this and that. When in reality it's a point of like if you're in that place saying those things, you usually can't handle yourself. Like you're not
Yeah.
accepting yourself. You're
It's
that's you're hating on you.
I mean, it's not necessarily always yourself. It's you're holding on to something within the energy that's creating a backlog.
Mm.
So it's like
You have a quirk
let's
and
if
there's a
you're
excuses.
yeah. Yeah, it's like if you were a pipe and you've somehow managed to stuff the pipe and it's like it's blocked, but things keep piling up on top of it and the pressure gets more and more and more.
Mhm.
And as soon as you take that block off, it's just like and everything's gone.
Mm, yeah.
Um, or it gets re-blocked again at some particular point, and you either unblock it again and it keeps going, or it builds back up. Um, that's, I guess, the easiest analogy that I can kind of put into my interpretation and understanding of what I've experienced, um, when I haven't been able to deal with emotions. And I mean, like when I say that, like dealing with emotions or dealing with energies or situations or people, um, and it's that letting go of that energy that really helps. And then when it gets stuck, it, it's figuring out, okay, like what in this situation is it that I'm connecting with, or he's hitting me? Where is it hitting me in my body?
Yeah.
Is a big one. Like, where is it hitting me in my body? What does my body want to say to me?
Mhm.
What does that part want to say to me? Like, oh, I've got butterflies in my tummy. What do the butterflies want to say?
Mhm. I mean, that's
Um,
important. Your empathetic or sensitive abilities are a great tool for you to get to know yourself.
but what you're doing in that regard is you're interpreting the energy that's
Clogged
inside
up.
of you. You're not interpreting the energy that's outside of you.
Mhm.
So it's like what's in here, not what's out there.
Yeah.
So it's managing, and then when you start to do that, you're focused in on you. Now that doesn't mean you're also not focused in out there, outside of yourself. Um, but for that moment in time, you're looking internally.
Mm.
And that's where practices like grounding, you know, mindfulness, meditation, becoming that eye in the storm, really help, because the energy can be swirling around you. But if you're at peace in it and it's just slowly
Mhm.
dissipating around you, it's not going to affect you.
Yeah.
It can be raging around you, but you can just be walking around smiling, happy, and being like, "This is a great day." And everyone else might be like, "This is crap. I can't deal with it."
Mhm.
But you're like, "I'm having a great time. Like, I'm just doing my thing." Right?
Yeah.
And then you might get overwhelmed at some point, and that's then when you come back to those tools of, for me, one of the first things I do if I start to feel overwhelmed, particularly if it's like large crowds or lots of energy, like I feel a lot of energy in a situation, is I find a space that's like, if I can quiet, if I can't find quiet, I just deal with it. But if I can find a space quiet, it doesn't even have to be by myself. It just can be slightly away from people. And I just take a few deep breaths and just ground myself in. And I like, the other thing I'll do is I'll be like, I let go of energy that isn't mine, that doesn't belong to me. I send it to my angels and guides to be recycled and reused.
Yeah. You're not gonna be
Right.
overworking yourself.
Um, so I'm not being like, I'm gonna take it back up and down. I mean, I can if I want to do, like, I connect it down, but I'm also asking for that help and support
Yeah.
in order and that they're there to help us do these things,
Mhm.
right? We're just the like receivers, and they are the delivery guys.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we receive the energy, but we then pass it on. Actually, think of it like we're the post office. We give it to the delivery driver, and they take it to where the hell it needs to
Mhm.
go to.
Yeah.
And for me, when I think of that, I always have this like, it's probably a bit of a bubbly image, or you know cutesy image, but I always have this image of like, even if it's like, if the energy is really dark, because there's been, if we live in a world where sometimes the energy is dark, if the energy is really dark, I always have this cutesy image of it like being recycled and becoming super clean, and then it going to someone that really needs that love, energy, and support,
Mhm.
that in that moment in time, like, and the angel or the guide or whatever giving it to them, and it makes that person's day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, like, I'm doing it." Like,
Yeah.
I'm part of that, like, even though the only thing I've done is, like, handed it over.
Yeah.
Like, "Take this, please."
Well, that's a big part of it is like that flow and awareness with it because one thing that is usually like a misconception if you're an empath is one, you have to deal with it on your own, which you really don't. There's, as we are going to probably repeat this throughout the entire podcast forever, is you have guides and angels and just supportive beings that you can see. And then you also have
Fairies,
people.
magical beings, whatever you wanna believe in, like, you
Absolutely
know,
everything.
if who knows, you may have Nessie following you around.
Yeah, or you from the future, or you from the past, or I don't freaking know. Like, there's many like whatever you feel into. That's real. It could be like a rainbow unicorn donkey, for all we know. So honestly, just keep in mind the point that everyone's here to support you. Even like people in your 3D reality are going to support you or surprise you on that, or how that like meeting certain people happens. But I think like besides figuring out how to like manage it all inside yourself and etc., it's really like important as an empath to embody the point that you're an empath and you're emotional and that you're this and that and etc. It is scary to most people, but it is absolutely essential because that helps you co-create the reality where there's more of that, or there's an ease with that for you yourself as well as other people. And you don't need to be happy all the time. If you're in a bad mood and you're actually just open in like the point that, hey, it's one of those days, this is how it's going, and etc., you will see either a reflection of your empathy in some like
Mm.
case and sense, or just a point of like how that gets recycled and flown through within your experience of you embodying who you are on a emotional and just, empathetic level. Don't think that you gotta like do it in a particular or precise way. Usually it's just a point of literally being yourself and accepting the point of, hey, this is, me. I perceive this, I take this in, I also share that, I embody that, and it'll probably be easier with time. It's not gonna be great right away. It's not gonna be great, but I have just plenty of examples where I was like terrified, and I just got out of like the victimhood mentality, and I go into a new environment, and I'm still with all of that baggage of like being too sensitive, this and that, etc. Emotions are not accepted within our society, and that doing a completely a complete 180 on me, because of it being refreshing to other people, and then when I would actually have my own experience of it being maybe one of those shitty days, or I'm literally like a bit hyper and there's, emotions everywhere just within the environment as well, and that's very obvious, and everyone's trying to keep it together, it would still balance itself out within, the environment between the people,
Mm.
in general. You need, like, what's that saying? You need every type of person or all types of people. So yeah.
And one thing I do wanna add on to that is, for those of you that, like, listened to the story before and felt like, "Hey, hang on a second, I'm here to make that difference, here to make that change." You're here to do that, but you're also here to grow and learn and experience as a soul.
And you can make mistakes, and you can,
Mhm.
have hard days and overreact and
Yeah.
not be
So
able to handle
you're
things.
you're not just here just to help everyone, you're also here to help yourself
Hmm.
as well. And grow and learn and develop. Um, and it's not easy. Because some of you may feel like you don't belong on earth and you don't belong around these people and you don't know where your tribe or your people are. Um, but you will find them
You will.
uh with time. And it may take some time and you may not feel comfortable within yourself. Again, that may take time, but it's a journey. And I was speaking to a particular friend of mine just recently, uh, and they were saying that, they feel more comfortable within themselves and they never thought they would feel this way about it.
Hmm.
Um, and how that you know, shift that they had, they never perceived it and they didn't even understand how it was gonna happen. They kind of intuitively knew it was coming, um, but if you had to ask them how it was gonna happen, when it was gonna happen, who was gonna be involved, and what it was gonna look like, they would have no idea. Um, so you don't need to know where this journey is taking you or what the end outcome is. You just need to keep taking the steps along the journey and keep making those small shifts uh, to actually go. And who knows? Maybe it's the next person you meet. Maybe it's hearing this podcast and hearing something in it that clicks into place and it starts to shift and work through something that you have been trying to figure out for the last 5 years, or it
Yeah.
might have been just last week.
Yep.
Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Um, there are questions that I have that I still haven't had answered, and I've had them for 10 plus years, and maybe I'll never find the answers for these. And sometimes I have, like, questions and they get answered, like, in 2 seconds, and I'm like, "Oh, it's really quick. That's cool."
Hmm.
nothing like, it all balances out in the end, but there's no set, quick, fast rules.
Yeah, the quicker you'll understand that it's not a goal-based success game on how to be the right type of empath, or this or that or whatever, the easier it's going to be. You're here to figure it out with all the imperfections of it being perfectly fine.
Mm. And I think that really, I guess, brings us full circle back to that whole victimhood thing, is that it doesn't have to be perfect.
Mhm.
Um, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to understand everything. And the other thing I will say is ask for help.
Mhm.
Um, like if you're struggling with this whole empath thing, reach out to us. Send us a message.
Yeah.
Um, because there's been times like I know for me, and I know you just in that same boat. Well, we didn't necessarily comprehend or understand what was going on, and just having a conversation or getting one tiny answer or just even feeling heard,
Mhm.
right? Particularly like when you have a lot of emotion, feeling heard and understood made a huge difference, even if they couldn't help me.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I think between us two, there's like continuous thing, which is it's cool that there's a place to talk about it when there's not gonna be any answers. There's just gonna be the space. No one's gonna know what the fuck's happening. And that's completely fine. You know, people could get like way over emotional and etc. Because like yeah, there's plenty of moments where either Jessica comes to me or I go to Jessica and we're like, what is life? How do I exist? How do I process this? Like, and the other
Mhm.
person is literally sitting there in silence, being like, I think I just need to sit here and process this too. I don't know the answers, but hey, this is life. At least it's nice then. You know, you can connect on this and like, in general, I think it reminds both of us that we're not the only two like that. We also have plenty of friends that are going through that all the time. And we just are using the opportunity on actually connecting it after like finding that, I guess. Um,
Oh, definitely. I
yeah.
mean, I know for me, like I have a few friends and there's been times where as empaths, like there's something going on the planet and it just wipes us all. And it's like we all come out of it and we all message each other at that moment in time and we're like, "Are you okay?" Or is like, and it's almost like a in like, "So, how are you?" "Oh, I'm horrible, like, the energy's been crap lately." "Oh, thank God." So it wasn't just me. My shit is okay, cool. So it's like, you okay, cool. It's like more than just me.
Hmm.
I just thought I wasn't processing my stuff or, like, if you
Yeah.
haven't got to figuring it out, and that's actually one last point I will make. Um, Sometimes being an empath, you're gonna get into a point where you can't figure out what's going on, and it's like you're trying to figure it out. Time is your friend. And while you're spending the time to figure it out, be kind to yourself.
Yeah, kindness
Be
is important.
be more kind to yourself than you normally would. Um, and that includes the kind words of I am putting the effort in to try and figure it out and I can't figure it out and that is okay.
Yeah. I do want to mention that if it's like a very difficult time and period, actually, no, I'll mention a few things. One, sometimes you don't need to figure it out, you just have to have the experience of it. And later on,
Mhm.
it's gonna make sense on like what the experience was, but not the reason why, or what came of it, or what anything else besides the point that, hey, I had this experience and I don't know. I made it through it at the very least. Thank you, whatever. But another aspect of it is usually when there's like a really difficult point in time, especially also if you wake up, you're having a difficult day, and then something like negative happens, either big within your social group or maybe within the planet or in the news or whatever. If that's happening, I also just want to say a precursor of like whenever there's the usual pre-programmed response of like I feel like shit, or I look so bad right now, or I am not in a good place and my mind's driving me nuts. Every single time there's a comment like that, back it up with something positive. Like give yourself props, like, oh, I feel like shit. That's okay. I can kind of have a cozy day at home, or like I can get that on my way to work and like process it and like take those 5 minutes outside in the park. Or like I don't look good. It's like I'm not supposed to look good. I'm beautiful the way I am. Like it's really integral and important to have that bounce back, because when it's those type of days, the amount that you're like programming yourself with is really important, because you're reacting to the way you treat yourself when it's a hard time. You're also reacting to the point that you're sensitive and you don't know what's happening and you feel like you should know what's happening. There's so many pre-programmed things for empaths about how they receive, process, let go, and treat themselves in terms of energy. It's really important. Self-care is like just start that right now. Just start that right now.
100%. And the last tip I wanna, I guess, leave, and this is just a little one. This is like a quick little tip. Um, Epsom salt.
Mm-hmm.
We've spoken about this, but, I think possibly in a previous episode. But particularly for empaths, if you're having a really difficult day with energy, Epsom salts, even if you don't have a bath, just even a handful and just like rubbing it on yourself. Like, obviously, don't do this daily because you're going to exfoliate your skin
Mm-hmm.
too far. But if you have a bath, run yourself a bath and put some Epsom salt in it. Now, what the Epsom salt does is it draws that energy into the salt crystals. Even if they dissolve in the bath, it dissolves it into that and pulls it out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So so you're not doing the work for you, the crystals are doing the work for you. Um, Quick and simple and easy way, and, if you actually tune into it, like, if you have a bath, you actually, uh, tune into the experience of it, you can actually literally feel the energy leaving you
Yeah.
as it like, as you get into the bath, you can actually feel like, "Hang on a second, it's moving away from me."
Yeah. Uh,
And that can make a huge difference.
I mean, in general, you just gave like the most best trick to any empath ever, and it's really simple. I mean, if you can get those salt, yeah, do it. But
I mean,
having
general
a
salt
shower,
works.
yeah, but having a shower, like
Yeah.
just the point of having a shower with the intention of letting go and cleansing is like super fucking important. And if you want, but like actually being mindful on that, because everyone already does that, that still has an effect. But if you're mindful about it as well,
Mm.
you like make it into a ritual every time. That's the thing that really hits home. And besides that, if you want to off on that and you don't have salts or you don't have a bath or whatever, just make the whole thing of like you doing your hygiene as a thing to treat yourself and let go and kind of like breathe in and out and feel better about yourself. If you can use like incense sticks or like scented candles, or I don't know, essential oils, or just whatever you can find, body lotion afterwards, or like whatever
Mhm.
creams and stuff like that, do it. Freaking do it. It is gonna help you regulate yourself absolutely any and every time. And the more you do it, the more you're gonna reaffirm within your programming and to your body that if I have a tough time, this is what I can do, and it's instantly going to change everything. It's very simple. I do like it. But that's the point. Like, cause that's like the easiest thing from what like since we've met each other we found out can fix anything is you having water. Uh,
Oh, water's huge for me.
yeah.
It's something that I, like, use consistently, um, massively. Salt water is even more so. So if you even if you don't have like a bath, and if you live near the beach, go to the beach and just put your feet in the water if you don't want to go for a swim. If you can't swim, obviously don't swim.
Yeah,
But
probably
if
don't
you
want
can
to do
swim,
that.
go for a swim in salt water. It's nature's it's nature's healing process. It's there for you to use.
Yep. That is it. Overall, like nature is your best friend when you're having a hard time. If anything, you could try a thing that I occasionally tried, and it did work. It was really nice. Because I've been like a closed off hermit since my uni days. I still have to like make that conscious effort of getting out of my house and whatever I want to do with that. I also slightly less social these days, so the point of connection that I'm really lacking, I can actually build back with nature walks or nature.
Mhm,
And I've tried this thing, and it really helped me when I've had health issues because of being an empath that hasn't managed my shit. Is I need to go on a nature date. That's how I would like call it. Is like, okay, nature, Gaia. I need some help. I know you also want to have a walk with me because I'm lazy and I've been ignoring everything and I've not been a part of nature and I should be. So, can we have like a date where I'm just gonna like walk out my door and have an autopilot where I go and that's it? And um that usually already kind of just puts you on a timeline where you're like gone in nature for a few hours and you're gonna be surprised, like you're usually gonna meet some type of animals, or like get into like really nice environments at the perfect time, at the perfect lighting, at the perfect weather or whatever, and just kind of get taken on this like journey for yourself to breathe and reconnect and rebalance. So if anything, don't just like make it as a intent to do an action, make it as an intent to actually go connect and ask like either your guides or the planet to help you out with that, especially if it's hard for you to get
mhm.
out of the house because let's admit it, it's not really a thing that everyone feels like doing when they need to, get over themselves, and there's a lot of dense energy around.
Yep, 100%. And again, it's similar to like we said in the last episode, find the things that work for you.
Yep, that's it.
It's as simple as that, and if you don't know what works for you, try something. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Usually have an inkling on what to try and not to try, so
I mean, but even if you try it and it fails miserably, maybe you give it a second chance and it'll work that time. Maybe you won't. Maybe that it's just not for you. But you'll find something else that does work for you.
maybe it's for someone else.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Most things I read up on how to do this don't work for me. That's like one of the harder things for me is like I tried studying everything out. I tried doing the book smarts thing when I needed street smarts. Um and yeah, nothing works unless I am like I'm gonna make it weird and in my own way, and it's like completely against what I got told to try and do, but it works, whatever. You know. Besides that, uh, I do want to say let's cut it off here because it feels like, the main things that we wanted to talk to are kind of covered. And I think I was
Mhm.
right when I was saying that this might be a bit of a two-parter or whatever. Um, because
Oh,
there's
there
like a
is so much,
hmm there's like a huge
so much
segment we
more.
didn't touch on that we can't.
There is so much more about empaths and everything to do with them.
Like actual
100%.
abilities and the actual gifts and the actual practical uses of it, and the point that you're probably not insane if you're having experiences of A, B, C, and D, and like there's way more. Um,
Which
but
is funny that we did it around the other way.
Yeah, it is funny that we did it around the other way, but that's what I was thinking was gonna happen. Like we already said that we're gonna talk about sensitivity itself and the point that you as an empath are born to be an empath because that is your true soul essence and it's okay. That is like the most important part of it. Plus, you don't have people explaining what are empaths that much besides being like people that really emotionally relate and are sensitive. Like, yeah, that's a huge
They're
part of it.
connected to
Uh-huh.
they connected to the energy and okay, now we've explained that. Let's get into the gifts.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone can talk about the gifts, but when we're talking about empaths, it's really lacking that we talk about the points of your personal journey on it, how you feel as a person. That it's probably a bit shit, and you don't need 10,000 answers and quick like hints and this and that and whatever about what an empath is. Like or just the 10 calling signs. Yeah. Um, yeah. Are
You're
you
an
an
empath.
empath?
So on that note, we're gonna leave you guys for another episode, and we will be making a part 2 of this episode, just talking all about the gifts and everything that
Mhm.
is to come.
Yep.
So just remember, it's time to stop dreaming and it's time to start living.
Yes, and thank you for listening to Awaken Dreaming. I'm gonna do a usual ad thing because I think it's fucking fair. You already sat through about an hour and 30 minutes of us talking, so you can deal with the ads at the end of this. If you want more content, follow Awaken Dreaming on Instagram as well as Etsy for just readings, clearings, and Twitch for all the other fun stuff where we actually talk a lot more personally and banter and blame each other for many different things. So yeah, those are the different things for the content. So have fun with that. That's it. Start living and stop dreaming.
Bye.